Hi, welcome back to Pages into the Past. I'm Paige. So this week's project I'm going to be working on a lace insertion blouse. This is something that I haven't done before, and I'm going to take you along with me and show you how certain steps are done. I will be doing a truly Victorian bodice, the 494 1894 shirtwaist. That will be the body of my blouse. And then I'm also going to be doing the sleeves from the 1908 Countryside Blouse. It's truly Victorian E47. And I like the cuffs and the different style of sleeves. And I figure since these are so easy to mix and match, why not? So come along for the journey and get yourself a cup of tea, and here we go. So I think I finally decided what blouse I'm going to make. I'm going to do some insertion lace, and so picking out patterns and taking them with you is a little bit difficult. And so I brought a few patterns with me, and I think I've decided that I'm going to do a truly Victorian view A on the left hand side there of the 1894 shirtwaist. But because I don't think I want sleeves quite that big, I think I'm going to substitute the Countryside Blouse sleeves at 3/4 length, or maybe full length with extra lace. I still need to make that decision. So what I've got is 3 different laces here, and I was thinking I could wrap the cuff of the sleeve with this in order to go ahead and make a fancier sleeve. And then I have 2 other laces here I could do insertion on. If I do, maybe do some insertion on this and then only do the insertion on part of it, so that it doesn't show too much of the underneath. I've brought my portable mid-weight interfacing because I can't bring the bolt. And then I've just got some nice little cottony fabric here. You can see my pins are in a container so that I don't spill them all over the floor, because you don't want to find them in the middle of the night in your sleeping area. So I'm gonna lay this out and start cutting it out. So you see here, I have picked out my pattern pieces and I've kind of laid them out. I can't get all of them on because my board is not long enough to fit all of the pattern pieces on. Back over here you can see that I've got the sleeve pieces cut out. This is the front, and all of these pieces here are everything that has to be cut on a fold. So I'm going to pin them out, cut them out, and then I will show you how it all goes together. This is a friction pen. It is heat erasable. I've heard from some quilters that they don't like them because when the weather turns cold, some of your marks can come back. I have not had any of that happen. They come in 4 different colors, and there's a variety of replacements. This particular set was purchased off of Amazon, and it came with about 10 replacements for each of the 4 pens. So when you're marking your fabric, you can do whatever you want, and then when you use the heat, it will erase off of your fabric for you. One of the things that you want to watch out for is on pattern pieces such as this, and this is from the Countryside Blouse, that the sleeves that we're making, this is part of the cuff, that you don't want to mark all of these lines with the friction pen, because there's a lot of ironing and pressing that goes along with this particular piece, and so you'll want to mark this with your chalk marker. So this is the sleeves, and there are 3 markings on the sleeves. There are the gathering markings up at the top or the head of the sleeve here. They're to show you where you're going to gather to. And then the other important mark here, and this is one of the most important marks, is you want to make sure that you mark your alignment for your sleeve, because your sleeve placket will end up going along this line. I've marked mine a little bit longer, but this is essentially where it will be going on there, and you want to make sure that you get your left and your right. So make sure that this mark gets put on there really good. You don't want to iron that one off. So I've double lined it. I marked it first with my erasable, and then secondly I did it with my chalk just in case I ended up touching that part with an iron before I got it aligned. So here you can see our sleeve placket pattern, and here you can see how I've marked just part of it with ink. The rest of it I have marked with chalk. I've also gone over the ink mark with chalk. I was just outlining that for better direction for myself. And you can see here the secondary piece. We've started the first fold on it. You can see how it's pressed. Now this one I had also marked with ink, and right at the very first press of the placket lines, the ink did disappear. And so this is one of the reasons why I was specifying not to use the heat erasable ink pens, the friction pens, on all of your pieces until you know which pieces are good, because once you press them, all of these lines that were on this piece here will disappear if you use a friction pen. Okay, so these are the next folds that you're going to see on the placket. You can see that here we have the first triangle folded over, and you've got the placket folded over, and then the next step is to fold the second half of the upper point over, press that real good. I've pinned them to help for while they're cooling, to help them keep their shape for when I sew them onto the sleeve. So I have sewed up the edge of the placket here. So you stitch around, and when you get all the way around, then what they want you to do is cut it so that you can turn it through. So you cut up the seam up to the Y, you cut that all the way as close to those edges as you can get, and then you'll be able to turn it through. So once you've turned it through, you should have this placket here that's there, and then this placket is outside here, and this up here is nice and flat. Alright, the next step in our project is to encase the seams. So on this part you can see where we top stitched after we folded that back over, we top stitched it. So now what we're going to do on this one, we're going to take the fold over the seams here, and we're going to top stitch this over the top, and then when we get up to the point, we're going to fold our pieces in that we had previously ironed to our point, and we're going to top stitch from here all the way down and around. And I will show you that completed look. This here is a pinned look. So you can see here it's pinned, and here's the peak. I have this pinned here just to hold it in place while I was setting this. It did make it a little bit easier to set it. So I'm going to stitch that up and I will show you the results. Now your placket is done. So you can see here where you've got the open seam, nice and clean. Top stitching is done, and now you can add your gathering seams and attach it to your cuff. So now that we have the placket set, I'm going to work on putting some insertion lace in on my sleeve. And so what I've done is I have found the center of my sleeve, marked my line, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch down my insertion lace. I'm going to stitch it down on the outside so that I'm going to stitch it so that when I cut this open, that this inside part will be the insertion, and this will be part one of the sleeve. I'm going to do 2 sleeves this way, and then I have enough of this lace that I'm going to also put it on the front parts of the blouse. Probably a couple sections of that. It's really just kind of I found a photo that I found on Pinterest that I'm going to kind of use as a base, trying to decide what insertion lace, what lace to put on, where to place it. It's all kind of a game of how to and how much to and how much do you want. There's so many pictures on Pinterest that are so inspiring. It's just, I figured for my first time I was going to take it kind of easy and not get too overly overwhelmed, especially when I'm on the road. Now, if I was in my shop and I had much more space and room to do this, I might get a little bit more intricate. But for on the road, I'm going to keep it simple, and I will show you as I progress. So I've gotten all sewed on there, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be cutting up the seam, the center piece. I had previously marked that with a red heat erasable marker. It's really important at this point in time that you don't cut the lace, that you only go between the lace and the fabric. So take it really slow. Make sure you know where you're going with this, and you'll just cut it up, and then these pieces, when you're all done, will get folded back, turned under, and then you'll turn it over and stitch it again. So you can see here how I've went ahead and I pressed it, and now I am turning it under so that I can, when I turn that over, I'll be able to top stitch this. It's just to enclose that seam, because that way, if you don't do that on this particular fabric, this fabric frays, and I just would prefer not having to deal with fraying fabric in my sleeves. So you can see here that I have gotten the one row of insertion lace put on the bodice front. I've decided to put on the front placket where it buttons before I do the next row, just so that I can get the button placket lined up, because I want to put the next row of lacing close to the front buttoning but not over the top of it. I got all of my insertion lace done on the front of my blouse. You can see here how I've added this next to the front opening. I also decided to add a third piece so that we have a little bit more insertion. I had extra lace, so I went ahead and added it. And so now it's just putting the rest of this blouse together. So I will show you more parts as it moves along, but for now I'm just going to keep on stitching. So now we are putting the bodice together, and I'm going to be doing French seams in this. And if you haven't done French seams before, you're going to put wrong sides together, and then you're going to sew 3/8 of an inch, trim it, flip it, sew your seam again at 1/4 inch, and that will give you a seam locked inside. It'll give you a nice clean finish seam. Since I'm doing this in the motorhome, I don't have my serger with me, so this is one of the ways that I clean finish my seams. When I get to the arms and adding the sleeves in, I'm going to do it the same way, and I will show you how that's done when I get there. Okay, you can see here where I have sewn the seam and trimmed it. Now what I'm going to do is press it, and then I will turn and press, give another stitch along here, encasing all of the edges in here. and when I flip it right side back out, then it will be completed as a French seam. Okay, so here's the other section of the seam. It was sewn at 1/4 inch, and so that way when you flip right sides out, all of your seam is encased inside for a nice clean finish. And that is a completed French seam. I'm going to do that on the side seams and the shoulders. When I add the sleeve in, any seam that's not encased in a belt or something will be finished with a French seam. So now we're back with the sleeves, and I have sewn them with right sides together. I will be trimming this to about a 1/4 to an 1/8 inch seam all the way around, and then I'm going to sew them wrong sides together to encase that seam, and then we will be ready, and all your seams will be hidden inside there. So here's your seams all encased, so that when you turn it right side out, all of your seams are inside, and it's a nice, neat finish. So right now I'm working on the cuffs, and I'm trying to decide how much lace to put on it. This one here has 1 large piece and 2 smaller pieces that you can see. Here's the large piece, and then the smaller pieces. So that there's a little bit more lace at the cuff. I don't know. I don't think that I'm going to make this insertion so that I don't weaken the cuff, because it's a lined cuff. I don't want to have to cut all the way through both pieces. So what I did to start with is I found the center of my cuff, lined up my large piece over the line. Whoops, sorry about that. Lined up the large piece, and then started laying out the skinnier piece of lace over the top, so that it doesn't get caught too far inside the seam lines. So once I get these done and attached, the last thing I have left to do is my collars. And there is a outer collar and an inner collar, and get those attached, and then we shall be good to go. I was able to get the collar and cuffs done. Here's our collar. I just used the 1 piece of lace all the way through the collar. I did not cut out the back side. And then for the sleeve cuff, we've done the same thing, only I did add extra pieces of lace. And so here is that finished cuff. And then you can see here, the sleeve also has insertion lace. Just 1 row this time. So there you go. So these are the finds of the last few days of our trip. We found them in different parts of California, some of them from Jackson, California, some more local to Placerville. So we'll just kind of go over things. So we got 10 yards of this. Inside the tube it says bridal satin, but I'm not quite sure if, I don't believe that it's bridal satin. But there's at least 10 yards here. And over the top of the roll came this moire taffeta sounding. There was 4.5 yards of this, and I got both of these on the same roll for $10. And then we got this little hat. Let's see if I can get a better picture for you. I got that for $3. I got this little sailor-esque hat for $3. And then we got the hat box for $3. And then when we were in Jackson, we found this quilting hoop for $65. It stands up so that you can quilt bead. It's going to be great for traveling so that I can secure my stuff. We also got this folding damaged parasol. It only folds, oh actually I went wrong. This is a carriage parasol because it also folds at the top. So this is one of my best finds because I've always wanted one that folds like a carriage one. I have another folding one at home, but it doesn't fold up to the very, very tip. You can see up here, or maybe not. There's another. Yep, you're not going to get to see that until I get better light. But there's that. And then we found this book at one of our stops. It was a freebie. So this was the final part. We'll be going home in a few days. And so this was the last of the finds from this trip. And so we'll be going out again here in a month or two. And so you'll get to look forward to see what else we can find. Alright, we've come to the end. I haven't been able to finish the blouse yet because I forgot to bring buttons. So I'll be putting those on at home. If you have any questions or comments, please leave me a note below. Make sure you like and subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.